Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jim Carrey Project. I'm your host, Brian Kondrak, and as always, I'm with my good friend,
Cary Grant.
This is the project where we are watching all of Jim Carrey's films from the beginning of his career to the present day of his career. In today's episode, we just finished watching Once Bitten. Once Bitten is a 1985 film, was directed by Howard Storm. Written by Jonathan Roberts, David Hines, Jeffrey House, Dimitri Villard. He wrote the story, or came up with the story. And then it was starring Lauren Hutton, Jim Carrey, Karen Coppins, and Cleavon Little. So some of those names you might recognize, some of those you might not. And this was a 94 minutes, had a budget of $3.2 million and box office of $10 million US dollars. So. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. What'd you think about it?
I liked it. It was good. Yeah. I'm surprised it made money.
Did very well.
It made money, yeah, good.
Compared to what its budget was. And now, I had seen this before, so I kind of knew what was going into it. I think this was not my first experience with like a real Jim Carrey, like full theatrical release movie.
Yeah.
I think Ace Ventura was the first one I saw in theaters, but I definitely saw this a little later and was like, oh, this is a Jim Carrey movie. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go and
on
see
TV
what it looks like. Yeah.
Checking it out.
It must have been on like a TBS late night movie or
Blockbuster.
something. Yeah, or HBO with my grandparents' house or something back in the day. So,
cool.
What'd you think about it?
I liked it. It was really good. I mean, I, again, didn't know what we were watching. Even like, honestly, when I just looked at it Once Bitten, I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even see those teeth. I still didn't even know it was a vampire until we started it. Like, even from the cover, now looking at it, I'm like, I should have known. But like, I tried just not to think about it until I'm in the
it's fun to experience all of these movies for the first time, like without knowing anything about it. So they say trailers ruin movies. It's like, for you who've never seen these movies at all, it's like, let's see what happens.
No. But obviously, even the cover doesn't give anything away to me. So
what's really good about this one, as I talked to you about it earlier, is that this is like, because this already had a regular like theatrical release, now we're getting into the film quality of like, hey, look, it's not just a YouTube or a Vudu or a whatever kind of like video website. Like this was on Amazon Prime.
Wasn't grainy.
It wasn't grainy. Good sound quality. IMDb gives it a 5.5 out of 10.
Okay.
But if you haven't seen this movie, the tagline or the plot is that a centuries-old vampiress comes to the Los Angeles and stalks male virgins, which apparently in the 1980s were impossible to come by.
Even in high school.
In Hollywood. High school was.
Yeah, even high school. Well, I mean, it did make it seem like Jim Carrey and his two friends were the only ones
that were not
that were
virgins.
Sex.
They've
had
virgins
like
completely.
it did make it seem like everyone else in high school was having sex.
Yeah.
Although I think I mentioned and we kind of talked about while we were watching it is that it still it seemed more innocent than some of the other like 80s high school movies at the time.
Oh yeah, and I was looking that up while we were in the middle of the movie. Just as like you mentioned that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So I was looking at it since this was 1985. Some of the movies that we all know and recognize as like high school 80s movies,
such a big thing back
like
then.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High came out in 1982. Breakfast Club had come out in 85.
Oh, totally.
Pretty in Pink is 86. So I think 16 Candles 84. So a lot of these movies, Risky Business, 83, like all these classic high school teenage caper movies, like had their heyday in the early and mid 80s.
It's right in the mix of all that.
And I think this one was...
It's different. It's really different to me.
I think what's funny about that, and I think what might make it different from the other ones, is that the other ones were very much like high school sex romps, you know? It's like the teenager...
That was the whole point of the movie.
And this is like Porky's is another one, 81. Like if you ever saw that one, that's like the dirtiest of like high school movies. But I think when they threw in the vampire thing into this one, they definitely had to calm it down and
they pull away from just being a straight up high school movie. It's now a high school movie with adult
vampires in it.
Vampires.
Fantasy teen is what
Is that what it says?
tagged
The genre?
as
Okay.
fantasy teen.
Interesting.
So you can't go full like sex, nudity, Revenge of the Nerds, sex scenes like
No.
Fast Towns of Ridgemont High, because it would detract from the fantasy story of this one.
Right.
And it would turn it into something completely different. So I can
Yeah.
see where there is a little bit of an innocence. And the fact that like we come in and we start the movie with his girlfriend's a virgin, she's holding off on sex.
Mm-hmm.
They still have this very much innocent kind of life that they lead.
Yeah.
And we have to see the transition of Jim Carrey into the bad boy that he becomes.
Sure, yeah. He slowly starts wearing all black
Yeah.
and the sunglasses
Yeah.
and
So,
kind of cool looking, but then everyone thinks, and then he looks like a vampire.
Yeah.
But he's cool. But he's cool at the same time.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
even more slick. So I think that's where they might get
Yeah.
that innocence to it for this movie.
It definitely felt more innocent to me than some of those do. Even like Pretty in Pink, which generally is not.
I've never seen it.
It's not. It's not like as quite as raunchy. But I think the way that it's done, I don't know what the boys and the girls. This one still felt different, even though there's a guy trying to hook up with a girl and that kind of thing. But yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it was just adding that other element in. I don't know, just even like the dance and all of that. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe
That's
I'm
what I
just
was-
older now too, and it's like different watching it. But I kind of enjoyed that about it. That
Yeah.
if there was like the wanting to have sex part of it, but still felt sweet. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it was a major point of like what the story was, is that he needs to either have sex or he becomes a vampire. I don't even know if he becomes a vampire. Well, he would be a vampire,
was
but
getting
also
close.
kind of a slave to the Countess as opposed to like just another regular vampire.
Right, part of her.
Yeah,
I don't know what you call it.
I don't know.
horde of
harem. Her
Yeah,
harem.
harem. Yeah.
But it didn't take a front seat to like the other thing. So
No. I like that. I enjoyed that.
It was fun.
I mean, I still enjoyed the teen part of it, like the dance.
Yeah.
The pre-Halloween dance or whatever it was, where Lauren Hutton, what's her name in it? I forget her name.
the
Countess.
just the Countess.
Just the
something
Countess. She
around
didn't even
there.
actually have a name, did she?
Just Countess.
Yeah, just Countess. And when she shows up and
Countess,
it's like the
your blessing.
dance fight
Yeah.
and he's like with her, and I think at that point is when the girlfriend really realizes that she is in a battle,
Yeah.
for him, and she's willing to fight for him.
Yeah.
And so it was cool how it kind of played out, and kind of like you said, the choreography was just
It was cheesy and
funny.
campy. It was fun. And Grease 2 came out in 1982, so this is definitely like a
Had that
rip-off of
feel
the
of-
Grease, the dance-off
push
between
and
Olivia
pull
Newton-John
and
and
yeah.
the other slut
Yeah.
from the first Grease.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, it was a super fun movie, and it's good to go back and see it again. Because, like, the cast, let's talk about a little bit of the cast. Lauren Hutton, famous model in the 80s. Like, that's mostly what she did with her career. I was looking at some
Was
of
she
her...
model in the 80s or was it more like the 70s?
She was probably more in the 70s and
Okay.
then started doing a lot more acting
Acting,
and
yeah.
stuff in the 80s. I mean, she has a pretty strong resume on IMDb, TV shows, movies. Ice Machine's going crazy. But then...
I think she was definitely the bigger build
yeah.
star. This one, but Jim Carrey was just right up in there.
He was.
with it,
He was.
yeah.
I mean, he could carry. He could. He
He was in
carried this
it way
movie.
more than
Yeah.
her, but
He-
I still think she would have been the draw to like get people to
yeah.
go at the time.
Well, the other one that I really realized halfway through the movie was Clavon Little, her butler slash chauffeur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was the lead with Gene Wilder in Blazing Saddles in 1974.
He looked familiar to me,
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly who he is. But he had that look where I was like, I bet he's.
Yeah,
in other things.
he has a lot of credits to his career between 74 and 85 when this came out, but like
Okay.
not Uptown. Blazing Saddles would have been like the one that everybody knew him
Knew
from. He
him
played
from,
Bart
yeah.
in 74, but like it was so
Okay.
funny to see you were this lead character and now you're just a chauffeur.
He still had, he still had a fairly big part in it,
Yeah.
like that, but that was just
And
his
then
role.
Karen Coppins, the
I thought
the
she was
girl.
adorable, actually.
Well, I said it earlier. just went blank on her name from Saved by the Bell. Kelly
Kapowski
kind of thing. Yeah.
Like just wholesome and cute. And she and then and she sort of like admitted it and she was like,
that was fun.
But then if you.
Yeah, spoilers. They end up doing it.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie.
Well,
you knew it was going to happen.
You can't be a virgin
Yeah.
and then she doesn't need your blood anymore.
Yeah. She kind of stopped acting after 94.
Okay.
I think she's still alive. She should
Probably.
be pretty young.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, she's still alive. So I mean, I feel like it was a pretty strong cast. His two best friends haven't done jack
Much
diddly.
else.
They don't even have photos on their IMDb page. So it's like,
I thought they were
oh,
cute. I thought
so
they looked
innocent.
more high schooly than Jim Carrey
Yeah.
did. And I don't know, they felt like cute and innocent
Yeah.
and stuff too. So they were cute little characters, but yeah, you could kind of look at them and be like, this is probably the one
Yeah.
big thing that they did.
Yay, we got to work with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
It's another one of those movies that had a big enough release and big enough like money made back that
Do
they
you think
didn't
people would have
need to.
known who Jim Carrey was in 84,
So,
85 by then?
I was looking at that, and this was still.
I think you could have missed him still.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known who he was,
No.
and this is still considered his early work. He would have
Totally.
been doing stand-up with Rodney Dangerfield at this point.
Okay, so that people
He-
might have heard of him.
He would have been. He did an evening at the Improv in '82, and then in '83 he debuted on the Tonight Show. So he
Okay.
was like end of his stand-up career, and then moving into some like stardom. So he had done the short-lived series, The Duck Factory, where he was the lead as a TV series, but then he was also trying to do way more movies and stuff. This is his biggest role, I think, and most like prominent role before
Sure.
Ace Ventura. And between 85 and then 94 is when I think Jim Carrey came out. Yeah.
Such a big
Or
time
Ace
frame. But
Ventura,
that's when
yeah.
he was on TV a lot. And
Yeah,
stuff,
he
right?
was doing
Okay.
that, and then he had a bunch of smaller parts. And Peggy
Mm.
Sue Got Married, which is a big movie that we'll watch, I think, next.
Yeah.
And there were a few things that he had between this and Ace Ventura that he was still like, oh, I'm trying to be an actor. Earth Girls Are Easy, we talk about in the '90s, and the Deadpool. So he was working, but this was like his
Totally.
like lead actor role.
He's totally lead actor.
Before the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. His acting ability in this one. To be a lead actor in a silly teenage comedy romp or whatever. I mean, he played a fairly straight guy
Totally.
for the whole time.
He wasn't. He wasn't Jim Carreying a lot.
There were one or two things where he made
Little
funny
bits.
faces, but he's a teenager in love and wants to get laid, so it played off as flirtatious,
Right.
not
Goofy.
goofy. I mean, yeah, goofy, but
little
like
goofy, but
not
not-
excessive to the point of like we've seen Jim Carrey do in Liar Liar or Ace Ventura.
Not
and things like
constantly. That's what
Yeah.
it was. There was a couple, like the bit in the store where she works in the store, and he was like trying to get her attention and make her
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
laugh. That was funny and kind of cute, like a little Jim Carrey. And then he
Yeah.
made a couple faces, and he did like one impression.
Yeah, and it was just like a
A
snippet.
second.
It
Not,
was-
like kind of a half impression. Like
Yeah.
he didn't even full on go into it.
Oh, it was was it De Niro?
De Niro, I think.
Which is funny because she says the line, something, you have a very Jerry Lewis vibe,
Mm-hmm.
which I think at one point in the early 80s, he did a thing where he did an impersonation of Jerry
Jerry
Lewis
Lewis.
for a fundraiser, and then it
was
was
really
funny
good.
that he
Yeah.
like even did this
Maybe
one.
that was like a joke, a private joke
yeah,
of
with the
like,
writers and
yeah,
everything. So it was fun. He was a cute 20-something-year-old,
Totally.
tall, not tall,
Almost
dark, and
like
handsome as
just
she
like
said.
like
but-
you said, just a normal straight actor.
he's a
Like it
handsome,
could have
kinda
been
handsome.
any other teen. I wouldn't say heartthrob because obviously
No.
he's the nerd who can't get laid. Although his
Yeah.
girlfriend's really pretty, but just like the normal teen actor guy
Yeah.
who's the lead in a movie.
He's cute. He was
Yeah.
a cutie. He was a cute guy. And
A
it
cutie.
was- yeah. Had some pretty funny moments in there with the writers. Like we start off with him in the burger being extra crispy, and it's like you call that
Subtle
well
things.
done.
Subtle things. I like that.
And
Uh-huh.
then, I mean, his transformation, I thought he did a really good job going from the cute, silly teenage boy to the vampire thing in there. His demeanor changes quite a bit, where he's, suave and broody and stuff. I think he had a really he did a really good job of.
Well, it was a very obvious change. And you know, when I think about it, like when he did sort of was becoming that half vampire guy, he seemed older, more mature, like I guess just the way he looks, and I don't know, like you said, like he I guess he was at that age where he could still kind of play that young one, but he also could play up. Like you would almost think that guy could be 30 years old as opposed to like an 18-year-old high school kid.
The transition to Jim Carrey.
Yeah, but he almost passed as a high school kid in the beginning.
Yeah,
I thought he still looked a little bit.
Like, how old are these kids?
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're right. Like that transition, he was a good fit and a good character for that to look pretty different in those two bits. Yeah. So I thought he did a really good job on that.
I thought so too.
I enjoy him in more sometimes straight stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
little bit more like a regular.
I think he's a good actor, and like, you know, I think maybe this was good for him too, as far as to stretch and be like.
Just be normal.
Yeah.
Just, like, don't go crazy.
Sometimes
just be
acting
sincere.
normal is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
It's easier to be the silly character.
Yeah. Dramatic acting is different than comedic acting, and like trying to get someone who's always silly to be dramatic and not necessarily the easiest thing. I really, looking at the photo, I still have it up on the TV, but like his face in the cover of him just like, like goofy up, like, I mean that's classic Jim Carrey, but it's also still like way more subdued than we're used to him.
It's not his most crazy face.
Yeah.
It's a little like a face like you or I could make, you know, but like you can make it if you want. Yeah, it's not like as contorted as he usually does.
It's funny. Let's talk about some of the other unexpected things in this movie. His dance moves and choreography.
Pretty good.
I was surprised at how good of a dancer he was in this, where it's like you didn't have any expectations of there was going to be a dance number with anything, and then he was able to transition between two different attitudes between dancing with the Countess versus his girlfriend.
Totally,
was very different, completely choreography and dance moves, and he was just like bam, bam, one to the other without even like any kind of hesitation or what seemed like stumbling at all. So
So basically, what was happening at that point was that she was sort of had him under a bit of a spell, and she could like kind of like start to pull him in a bit. And so while they were fighting, he would get under her spell with her. And with the Countess, and like dance differently and be into her, and then his girlfriend could sort of break the spell.
Robin Pierce.
Of his,
because it pierced the heart, I guess.
Because of his love for her, and then that was a little more playful, I guess.
Playful and flirty.
Still, you know, they tried to be a little sexy.
They were pretty heavy-handed.
She ended up taking a lot of her clothes off, the girlfriend in the show. She was having to compete with the Countess, so she needed to get a little sexier.
Yeah. Her Jack and Jill costume, Jill became.
And then it's also all white. Once she took her clothes off, she was in complete white, like a white leotard and a white like see-through skirt.
It was very heavy-handed in the symbolism of the black vampire costume and the white
sweet innocent virgin high school girl.
It was real funny.
Although she was sassy.
She was sassy. Yeah. She was sassy through the whole movie, and it's like I'm sad to see that she doesn't do a whole lot after the '90s. But it's like, I thought she's probably fine with what she was doing. And
I liked her character because she felt like a strong, like female character at the time. You know, like in the '80s, sometimes they could be a little like
floozy, a little bit of loose,
floozy, or I don't know, bitchy or different things like that. And she just felt like a very solid, like she wasn't going to have sex until she was ready. Yeah. She had sex when she wanted to in the end. She fought for her guy, but she also like dumped him when she got mad at him. Like I think she like, I don't know, she was solid. I liked it. There wasn't any like whiny bits or anything about her where you're like, I'm kind of annoyed with her. Like I kind of liked her the whole time.
Yeah.
So she was
fun.
It was really good. Any other interesting parts that you can remember that you really enjoyed?
It's so funny that like the shower scene always makes me laugh just because it's like the camera work was so good where it's like, were they actually, I think one of them was actually naked, but like were the other two guys like actually naked in the whole scene? But then the reaction of like a bunch of getting grabbed, like, oh, bunch of homos in the shower, get out of here.
Everybody run.
Ah, we gotta get out of here.
It's just so 80s, so silly.
Yeah, it was funny. And it's just like he's driving around in the ice cream truck, like, as his job. And like,
which was, I mean, it's a funny
so
little twist.
weird.
It makes him a little sillier. It's a funny little twist.
Makes him come off as a virgin for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and also they didn't show him actually selling until toward the end. I'm like, they just let like this high school kid like drive or unless he bought it, but it doesn't seem like he bought it. I don't know. But like they just let him drive an ice cream truck all around.
Why the heck not?
Full time.
That's his job. That's his car.
Yeah. So another part that I really enjoyed that we both did was early on when they went to Hollywood and they went to the club and they had the tables with the little lip phones where you could call.
Silly, interesting.
You could like be like, oh, they're cute over there. Let me just call them, as opposed to like buy them a drink or walk over. Yeah. You like call people and like test it out.
Feel for it.
Are you interested? No, I don't know.
I'm curious if a bar like that actually existed like in the 80s or like if it does. Like, could it work in a place and society that we live in now, or would it just be like a tablet with social media and like video call or something to the table next to you, just send messages. But yeah, it was so funny. Like the whole driving through Hollywood to show how weird and crazy it was super fun. And their reactions, like the three of them in the car with their reactions and Jim Carrey driving, they're all looking around, was super fun. Like there were so many fun little moments in this movie of just him being a fun, silly actor and a fun, silly guy. I think it was
cute, kind of the nerdy guy, but cute. Yeah.
I mean, we're starting to see him come into his own as an actor. You know, it's like our little baby's growing up.
He's getting big roles. I mean, again, this had to have been exciting. I think that last movie we said was released in the theaters, but it didn't do well at all.
It was. I guess it probably tanked. The Finders Keepers,
like
it tanked.
I wonder,
its budget was $7 million and it had a gross of 1.4. But Once Bitten had a budget of 3.2 and made a box office of 10.
He might still be getting paid for this. He might have just gotten paid for us watching it on.
Probably did.
On Amazon Prime right now.
Getting residuals.
So, exactly. Like
after this video gets released, he's gonna get a spike in his Once Bitten residual.
2 cents from these guys.
Where is this coming from? Do a search, find us, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna go call them up and be on their show. One can hope.
Man, we're just going there.
Let's go
for it. Okay.
You know what?
No, but he must have been so happy and excited about it. And like, again, Lauren Hutton would have been well known, I think, at that point. Yeah. So whether, some people might have known about him or not, he could, sort of one of those people where like, if you're sort of into that kind of stuff, you would know of him, but like most of the general public probably didn't at that point. So that was probably a pretty cool thing. For him to get such a huge role. And
it was. And I mean, they didn't skimp on special effects or like, they had their own theme song, the Once Bitten theme song. They had like the Real Big Dance number. They had some fun special effects for the beginning of the movie where he's surrounded by everybody else having sex and every single car is shaking.
Every single car shaking around him.
I love in the 1980s and a lot of, and even probably still to this day, every time you show groups or show like a sex scene, it's just the car shaking back and forth. The coffin at the end was shaking back and forth. But then
kind of cute and innocent in a way too.
Still. The dream sequences were real fun to watch too, where Cleavon is rolling around on roller skates trying to be a wraith or like float among them.
That's funny. I think those are just
intimate they were.
Purely comedic because they really, I don't feel, you could have talked about the dreams without having to see the dreams and the storyline would have still followed fine. So it purely comedic in that part because it was, how much smoke can we get in there and how, let's put him on roller skates. And
he floats among them playing the accordion, which is of course, the most romantic
Accordion.
instrument that anyone
love
could
the
ever
accordion.
play. So we were just talking about box office. I wanted to bring this up. Oh, sorry. Let's go back a second. The other special effects were all the vampire chase scene where they're busting through the walls, busting through the
yeah.
floor. Like it was
lot of
it was
broken
a
things.
surprisingly lower budget than higher quality for the lower budget on there that I thought it was fun.
Totally.
It seems like it would be a lot of fun to be doing a show like that with
totally.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about ratings. It made a bunch of money in the box office,
Okay.
$10 million on the box office. On
In the
Rotten
80s.
Tomatoes, yeah. 18% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics and a 39% audience score.
Okay.
That's only 11 critics rated it, but then there's 28,000
Oh, wow.
rating for a 39% audience score. So that's probably a little low. The 80s guilty pleasure that I go back to again and again for a good chuckle.
Yeah.
Call me crazy, but I liked it.
I like it.
Ickly wrong and disturbing was what somebody wrote about, so I don't know what that is.
I mean, vampire movies have come a long way since then. Through, what was the one with Brad Pitt and
Interview with a Vampire.
so like that must have been after that. Was that like early 90s
I'm
maybe
not sure
or late
when that
80s?
one was. I know that was Kirsten
So
Dunst.
like that, and then going into obviously Twilight series several years ago. But
Yeah.
the whole vampire idea has been taken, different directions since then.
Yeah.
This was still sort of like
This is
old
90
school.
that was 94.
Old school, like vampires are still kind of like funny,
Interesting,
and
yeah.
like it was comedic,
Yeah.
whereas like Twilight was like all brooding
Yeah.
and like all that kind of stuff. So.
Interview with a Vampire was 94, so it was still
Quite a
had
bit
little
after.
while
That's what I'm
after.
saying. So like this is when vampires were still, like I don't know, like Elvira kind of feel and stuff. Like kind of
Yeah.
campy almost.
Yeah, very much so. I thought it was
Yeah.
funny. I was looking at the movie info real quick. It says if she didn't get the blood by Halloween, she would surely die. But that didn't.
She didn't
no,
die. She just got old. I wondered
and
about that
haggard.
too.
She still looked good.
They said she was 400 years old. You would die.
Yeah.
You can't age to 400
yeah,
unless vampires can. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, vampires. Can
It doesn't matter.
She's been getting the blood.
That's
of
not to read
virgins-
too much into
I
those
know.
kind of things.
She's been getting the blood of virgins for a long enough time.
She was okay.
That it was good. So
You said tomorrow's a new day to her, so maybe she's still gonna get one.
she's be fine.
Yeah.
So what would you give this as a rating?
So I want to just comment on the 39% or the lower percent. I wonder like if people kind of like you or me at this point, like who are big Jim Carrey fans and they find something like this and then are those the people, or maybe a Lauren Hutton fan, I don't know, but those are the people who are maybe watching these things, but then you're comparing it to what you already think Jim Carrey is.
Yeah,
and
what-
so that's why
what kind
maybe
of
people
movie
aren't
is it?
as excited about it. And also, again, like, are they watching it now? I
Yeah.
mean, it's watching this movie now is still very different than watching it 2 years or 3 years after it came out.
Yeah,
even,
and Rotten Tomatoes is very much a very new and current
Totally.
age kind of.
So these are
thing.
people.
These are from 2010,
Yeah.
2009.
So it's hard for me to rank because I can appreciate it for what it was at the time. Obviously, most 80s movies don't always hold up the same today as they used to. So, I mean, again, I think it was really well done. Again, for the budget and like as much as it was in there, I kind of enjoyed the Los Angeles stuff. Was kind of interesting to me too, and the high school part. It had a lot of cool, and then vampires. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
It was
So
a cheesy, campy 1980s teenager
mean,
flick.
I again enjoy this as much as I would, like Pretty in Pink and some of those.
Yeah.
So I'd say an 8.
You give it an 8?
Yeah.
That's a pretty nice, that's a pretty good score.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff in here. The acting was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Some cheesy, campy, silly lines, but I mean, I thought the writing was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
I would go, I'll go right with you in that 8-ish range. I was thinking 6, but like, I think that's just because there's some things that could have been probably more clearly defined, or like you didn't need to have the harem of vampires that didn't do anything
Most
except
of the
like
time, yeah.
show up and then this like they were gone for the entire movie. Like you could have played more with that, or like even have some more clear like rules for what the vampire can and cannot do, because were they shopping at the mall in the middle of the night and she's hanging out in the mall, or was that
True.
like
There was some holes in the theory, in the
few
theories
little
there.
like plot holes and stuff.
Yes, totally. So
The crosses don't work on vampires. Besides, I'm an atheist. But
that's funny.
It's a great line. So I'll give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
That's
So
solid.
I think it was a fun movie. I definitely going back and watching it all the way through. I don't even remember the last time I saw it, but like going back to watch it all the way through was super fun. And I'm glad that I have someone like you to enjoy it with who had never seen it. Where it's like a
then you're like,
new
oh, no, it
80s
is kind of
movie.
okay, yeah.
And it's super fun. The two.
I feel like I just want to watch a bunch of 80s movies.
I know,
now,
right?
Too.
Well, here's the list of.
Well,
on
I'm
my
going to. I'm going to
computer.
start looking through some of them.
There's so many of these that I haven't seen or haven't like. I've never seen Pretty in Pink. I've never seen I've seen Teen Wolf. That was pretty good, but I've never seen Fast Times at Ridgemont
Well, and I
High.
think that's why I like these movies because I mean, although I mean, my parents really never took me to the movies or anything like that. They used to play stuff like that within a year or so, lots of times on
Maybe
regular
on
TV. And so, like, you know, I remember, you know, watching Teen Wolf just at home a lot in the 80s and stuff. And I don't know, I think I like that kind of genre.
They're fun.
Yeah,
They're
they
fun
are.
movies. There's a reason
Just
that there's
brings me
so
back.
many of them.
Yeah, it brings me
Classics
back.
like Ferris Bueller's Day
Yeah.
Off, Risky Business. I mean, they
Totally.
work really well for.
I'd say some of those I probably
movies and
didn't see in
stuff.
the 80s because I probably wasn't allowed to see like Risky Business
Yeah.
when I was, 10.
I saw Porky's when I was a young boy, and it was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's just gratuitous TNA everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it is probably one of the most like nudity kind of 80s movies.
I feel like
and
I've
stuff
seen parts of
that.
it. I'm not even sure I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
That should be on my list
It
then
should
too.
be on your list. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up. Talking about the 80s and teen movies, sex comedies. Definitely we need to wrap it up. That was a terrible, terrible joke. I'm sorry. So, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Once Bitten with Lauren Hutton, Jim Carrey, and others. Cleavon Little and Karen Hopkins. Next time, tune in with us next time. We're going to be watching we're going to step back, I think, from Jim Carrey as being a lead role for this one, for the next couple ones. Because next we watch Peggy Sue Got Married. So he is only in it as one of her friends, I think, from high school. So he's not going to be in it a whole lot. But Peggy Sue Got Married does have, I think, was a pretty popular movie when it came out.
Totally, yeah.
It's definitely going to be fun. But that's time traveling 1983 rom-com.
Yeah.
So that'll be another
fun.
kind of fantasy world that we're living in on that one.
Let's go in.
It'll be fun. So we'll see that next time. But thank you guys so much for hanging out when we watched Once Bitten. And my name is Brian Kondrak.
And Cary Grant.
And we will see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.